On today's show, should the Dallas Mavericks shut down Anthony Davis? We may find out today, but I'm going to tell you what they should do on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm going to get a city like that.
Dogs, all of us, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great,
your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Still can't leave me alone.
Your team every day.
Gotta be born with it. Dog blood.
And welcome. You're locked on to the Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member covering the Dallas Mavericks for 10 years. Thanks for being an everydayer, making Locked On Mavs your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And joining me, as always, on Postgame, the Postgame Prodigy from the Great Slightly Biased YouTube channel and Bleacher Report. What you got for me, Slightly Biased?
19 more. 19 more.
The walk down the dark journey begins for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yep.
We'll talk about that. We'll break down the Mavs game, the Mavs, quote unquote Mavs against the Bucks. We'll talk about that. A couple of things we'll take away from that game. So we'll talk about that. We learn how Jason Kidd is going to approach this, at least the last couple of games here. But let's start here slightly. Anthony Davis and Lively and Gafford, apparently we're still going to learn on Thursday the result or the reevaluation or what they're going to do with these guys or what the current status is for these guys. And let's start with Anthony Davis. And according to Shams Charania, the Mavs and AD's representation have talked about shutting him down for the rest of the season, that he could have only played those 30 minutes. And that's the only thing he's going to play for the Mavericks this season. If you're the Mavericks, should you shut Anthony Davis down? And I think I've already come out and said that yes, they should. It's time to shut everything down. Let him get healthy. If he needs surgery, let him get the surgery. Don't rush it all. And I think you're in agreement on that with me.
Yeah, it's tank time. Full stop.
Is there any case for him to stay and for him to come back if he can?
When you say stay,
stay on the court. No, not trade him. We're not doing the whole bond.
That was also a conversation.
I know we may get into the Bontemps thing, but yeah.
No, I don't think there's any argument for him coming back. I can't imagine what that would possibly be. Because one, I doubt he'll be 100%. It seems like maybe I'm wrong on this. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, surprisingly enough. But
wait, you're what?
I'm not a doctor, so I don't know.
I know people think I am all the time. I guess I just give off doctor because I'm so smart. But no, people. I think that there is probably maybe going to be a surgery anyways. Like that was kind of some of the stuff I got was like he could maybe play through it to end the season, but there might be an inevitability here down the line. Just let him get the surgery and whatever, so he's ready to go at the start of next season. I feel for all parties involved. I mean, if you're Clutch and AD's representation and you're just like, look, man, there's just not. Let's just be honest about the outlook for this team. If AD comes back in 5 or 6, 7 games, we're probably out the play-in, and there's going to be so much on Anthony Davis coming off of an injury and probably not even close to 100% that now we're talking stuff that could linger into next season potentially. Let's just let him get healthy. We'll reassess our situation in the summer and have AD come back ready to go 100% next season. That is the course of action right now.
There's nothing for the vibes or getting used to playing with other players, playing with Klay, playing with Naji, playing with Max Christie again, like on this new team. There's no benefit that you could get because it almost feels like when you're talking about Anthony Davis coming back or not, you're talking about whether there can be anything gained from the last 19 games of the season now.
Nothing. So also, okay, look, let me say this to the front office if anyone's listening. You've made your bed that you're now laying in with the Luka trade. You have to do, if we just take all of our emotions out and we go back to we're rooting for the long-term success of this team. What do you need to do moving forward? You have to tank the rest of this season. And we said it the last post-game show, like this is all organic now. Like this isn't us saying shut this guy down, this guy. You're going to lose this many games.
He's already hurt. Right, he's already hurt.
Yes, like there's no. Well, maybe this guy shouldn't play. Like you're going to lose a ton of games from here into the regular season. You have to improve your draft position as best as possible. That has to be what you do. I don't know if you're going to get into the top 10, into the bottom 8, whatever the case may be. There's a long road ahead of you on that front, but you have to do everything you can to improve your draft position because that's like the only real salvageable thing from all of this is, let's say you get the 8th best odds, which I think is possible because I think ahead of you right now is Atlanta, the Suns, and the Blazers.
Phoenix, Portland, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely possible that you lose more games than those teams. And it's definitely possible because you play the Spurs twice. You could even potentially lose more games than them the rest of the way. Just try to, and then just pray for lottery luck. You're one of the very small handful of teams that have never moved up in the lottery in the history of the draft lottery. Maybe you get some draft luck this time around.
Oh,
and,
for once.
I mean, for once. Like, I don't, because it is, from what I understand, if you get a top 5 pick in this draft, you're feeling pretty good with who you're leaving with. So that has to be the thing. There's no AD comes back for 9 games. At least he looks good with, what are you arguing? Yeah, he looks good with Kessler. He got some run with Kessler Edwards. It's like, all right. He got some Spencer Dinwiddie burn. It's like, great.
Well, we may also talk about what would be your strategy on the two-way guys, because they only have they only have like half the games left. So we may talk about that a little bit later. But with Anthony Davis, I think you're right. And I started with, could there be any case getting chemistry with some of these guys, vibes or morale, seeing what Anthony Davis could be. Maybe it's Anthony Davis playing in Jason Kidd's system. You could try and talk yourself into any of these things. All right, well, there could be some benefit. Maybe the Mavs could stay. I mean, they're still not out of 10th right now, even after this brutal loss tonight and the one last night. Like, they're still not out of 10, so they could still win a play-in game with Anthony Davis, and then maybe you're in the playoffs, and then there's something there. But none of that is enough to make it worth it, right? And so there is no reason to bring Anthony Davis back.
None.
Unless AD himself is like, I have to come back. What if he says that? Because now you've trusted AD with your franchise. And what if he's just saying, guys, I got to come back because I've got to show these Mavs fans that there is something, there is hope, right? That there is something there. Because everybody's saying there's no hope, there's no future, there's no nothing, there's no Mavs. Right? What if Anthony Davis says that? Let's do that. Let's play that game.
That becomes interesting. I still think you just look at it and be like, it's not the best for our franchise. Like, we don't want you injured. You're gonna be the face of our team next year, and we want you 100% healthy for that. It's not worth the risk of you coming back for 10 games. We admire. You're just like Kobe Bryant in that way. Does Nico Harrison know Kobe Bryant did not?
Do you think he does? Do you think he does?
He might know. He might think that, because Cuban spent about 10 years saying, "Hey guys, we almost traded for Kobe." Like, anytime I was like, man, the Mavericks, can they get a free agent? It's like, well, guys, we almost traded for Kobe that one time. And that came up every 5 months. I felt like that story.
Explain yourself. Sorry.
Like, every 5 months was just like, guys, we almost did it. But no, he might think that Kobe played for the Mavs. Sure. There's a world where Nico's from a different timeline.
Oh, and he just, well, the conspiracy, you ready?
Yeah.
The latest conspiracy going on is that Nico knows there's some kind of curse on the Mavericks. And so he did Luka a solid.
I tweeted that yesterday.
By sending him away.
I like the conspiracy I saw that was I forgot who said it. But that, I think it was the We Know Ball podcast guys. But that the Adelsons, since they're so plugged into politics, that they're one of the very few people who know that we're, as a country, you don't got to worry about basketball in 2029. That might be the least of our concerns.
Yeah, you got to win now. Like, you got to
come 2028, 2029. You're just not going to be worried about the NBA. So let's just go for it.
We're going to be all salvaging water. whatever we're doing. Yeah, there's just no rational reason to keep Anthony Davis playing this season. Well, there really isn't.
What would you do if AD went to you and like, I want to play?
Yeah, so if AD says I want to play, I would say, respectfully, that's great. Love that. That's the mama mentality. If I'm Nico Harrison, right, I'm talking to him and I'm like, you know what? Do you know that I hung out with Kobe a lot during his career? Do you know that I know Kobe? Do you know that I know what the mama mentality is? Which, by the way, I've been thinking about this lately. I would like to go do a deep dive in what Nico actually did with Kobe. Was he up in his 4 a.m. workouts? Was he hanging what was he doing? Or was he just around him like got a piece of his aura? You know what I mean?
I think it was that.
And so you tell him respectfully, we're looking out for the best of our franchise. Listen, if we get a better draft pick, we can use that to get you more help. That's the way you position it to a player. Not that, because a player, when you say we're trying to get a better draft pick, they're going to say, well, I don't care about that. Well, let's go trying to bring in somebody that's going to take my job eventually.
Or you can also do Lively and Gafford probably aren't going to be back this season, so you're going to be playing a lot of 5 minutes. And if we want to win the game, you're going to have to get like 40 minutes a night. So
you just tell them, listen, it's going to be miserable. You're going to hate it. Like you just do the opposite where you're like, this is not going to be for your best interest, man. Like you're going to have no fun. This is going to be, It's like when you're a parent and when your parent, my parents did this to me a couple times. They try to convince you that a thing is going to be really bad. Like, hey, can I go with you to like my dad for like some meeting or something? He's like, it's going to be so boring. You're not going to like any of it. It's going to be the worst. The snacks there are not going to be good. You're not going to like any of them. And I'd be like, Dad, I still want to go with you. And he's like, no, you wouldn't like it. Yeah, that's what they have to do to Anthony Davis is convince him that he just wouldn't want to come back. Because if he does say, I would like to come back if he can, then yeah, you're kind of stuck because it's a star player. But yeah, there's no rational reason to bring him back. So hopefully on Thursday we learn that they shut him down because that's what's best for the franchise going forward.
Yeah,
That said, the Mavs did play a game. The quote-unquote Mavs did play a game tonight against the Milwaukee Bucks. What do we see from Klay Thompson that I was really encouraged by? And more coming up. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by, just in time for BetterHelp. Who's your support system? Mine is Isaac. Talk to him all the time. I send him texts saying I'm not okay or I need to talk to somebody or whatever. My parents, obviously, my sister, I just call and say, hey, I need some perspective because they don't live in this NBA world sometimes where it revolves around everything that we care about and think about. And so they can talk me around they can talk me down from some of the frustration of this Mavs team currently. Even the strongest leaders and athletes know that asking for help makes them better. That's where therapy comes into play. It helps you setting boundaries, developing coping skills, becoming the best version of yourself. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Again, BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
Shut it down! Let's go home! Welcome to Dallas, a city in turmoil.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, what we call our listeners. It's now time for the rest of the season. When we do these the post-game part of the show, it will be the dark times. Because that's what we're in right now. It is the dark times. It is not a good spot to be in right now if you're the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavs had more players not available than they had available.
This is the crazy part
today. And I'm looking at this roster and looking at the bench and your tweet showing that only Kessler Edwards, and I think there was one guy behind the basketball stanchion, but there was only one player on the bench. It just looks insane what is happening to this Mavericks team right now, or what is left of it.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy too, because so the Kai Jones stuff is two-way manipulation, right?
It could be, but I think with him, they called it a quad injury, so they could just say he was not active.
Yeah, I guess, but I saw that he only has a set number of games left himself. Because
right. He only has 11. He only has 11 games left.
I want to say that's about the same number for Brandon Williams as well. So
Brandon Williams has 10, and Kessler Edwards has 8.
So they got to manipulate these guys. So on top of all the injuries, because of their roster limitations, their financial limitations, and the fact that they still have to wait another 4 or so weeks before they could sign people, because it's April 1st where they could sign somebody. How many games are left at that point? Like
not many.
I mean, yeah, you're reaching this hilarious point where you look at the bench and there is
after April 1st, there's like 6 games left.
Oh boy. All right. So yeah. Who's going to be on the way then? I mean, what? Hassan Whiteside, he's still kicking.
Oh, is he? Is he still out there?
Pick him up.
Remember when the Mavs summer was they were going to sign Mike Conley and Hassan Whiteside to
I was so excited for Mike Conley.
Like $60 million total between the two of them.
Yeah. 2016, right?
Oh, that was the time. The Mavs were playing dry powder. That sounds great right now. Playing powder.
That sounds fantastic.
That sounds great right now. Can we save some cap space to go big fish hunting in the offseason?
Yeah. Who can we pair with Luka? Please, we got to get him something.
Remember when the biggest complaint that Mavs fans had for the franchise is that they didn't sign Jay Crowder in 2019?
Yeah, I remember oh my God, I had to listen to Danny Green's horrible podcasts.
Oh yeah, we listened to that every day. We talked about it. We would do like a Danny Green post game episode of his podcast. This is what he's saying right now. He's weighing his options still. He's thinking about the two.
Yep, that was it. And who was the other one? Pat Bev, right? Pat Bev was another one. It was like,
oh
if we
my
can get
gosh,
Patrick Beverly in here.
Oh, that'd be great. Patrick Beverly. Next to Luka. Remember a backcourt of Pat Bev? He can do all the dirty work as a guard. The Mavs did play a game. We're in the dark. We're in the dark times. That's why it's all dark and we're got our hoods up and we're in the abyss. They lose 137 to 107. And if I'm going to take any positives out of this, Klay Thompson was pretty great. 28 points, hit 6 threes, 4 assists, 4 boards, gave a crap, played 34 minutes. I thought that he went out there and I thought he showed like, hey, I've still got something to say right here. And not giving up, I think is going to be a good thing for this Mavs team because we can make jokes and we can feel like we've given up. But if the Mavs themselves give up or if any of these players do, it's going to be tough for them to rebound next season, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, 27 shots for Klay. Get out there and get them up.
Yeah.
Get out there 6 of 14 from 3. I mean, Klay's had stretches this season where we've talked about it. Klay's had stretches where he's got 4 or 5 shots in games. From this point forward, it's just like, all right, Klay, man. I mean, I know the situation isn't the best. I know at your age, you want to contend at the highest level, and that's why you came here. But make something out of nothing. Go out there and just let it loose, man. Just shoot, play hard. You will lose by 30 points, but that, you know what? That might not be the worst case scenario.
If you're Klay and if you're the Mavericks thinking about Klay, I guess this is a time to just run out some plays and just try some stuff with Klay Thompson. Like, how many ways can we get Klay open? Can we add anything? Like, let's just start adding some plays to the playbook for Klay. And
yeah, that or just be like, hey, our analytics guy kind of want to see if you just shoot 15 threes, even if they're bad. Like, if you just get up 15 threes a night, we just want to see what that looks like. Yeah,
what happens if you do?
Are you that good of a shooter that we could look at that and be like, it doesn't matter. As Klay hits 15, we're good.
Yeah, as long as he gets them up and takes them. And I mean, there's no creation on the Mavs right now. It's like they're creating off dribble handoffs. They're creating off of some drive and kick, but it's not what it used to be where he's getting spoon fed shots. Yeah. If you're Klay Thompson, I got asked this question a couple times today on the text line and on comments and stuff. If you're Klay, what are you thinking you're doing right now? Because you signed up to be with Luka, and now you have this that you're playing with the rest of the season. Like, do you ask out? Like, what would you do if you're Klay?
I'm about 70% confident we'll hear a Klay trade request in the summer.
70%.
What's the? How old is he right now? 35.
35.
What is the driving force for wanting to stick around another year? Like if Kyrie if the Kyrie injury didn't happen, then that's different because then you can just go, hey, Klay, we got Kyrie, we've got AD. And also, if I'm Klay, I'm kind of looking at this situation. I'm looking at how much money I'm making. I'm looking at the other players around the league who are making money, and I'm like, wait a second. So the Mavs need to get to $40, $50 million to add my contract into this. I probably might be on the move this summer without even asking for it.
Yeah, they already wanted to go get Kevin Durant, and so I'm going to be on the outs if they do something like that.
Klay being on this team to start the season next year would surprise me, I think.
Interesting. It is strange. It is strange because with Kyrie, the injury is going to be like everybody said, 8 to 12 month recovery, and so it could be. I mean, the beginning of his season is already in jeopardy because of how late in this season that injury happened. And so
Klay's also gone through it.
Yeah. I said that as a positive for Kyrie, that he has somebody in Klay that he can lean on to help him through this process and to at least show him, what it meant and all that. But yeah, for Klay, that'll be fascinating to see if he does have some kind of trade request or something.
It's also possible he's like, yeah, I like Dallas. I like being here. Like, they've welcomed me with open arms. Like, I don't really want to get traded, but
they could, yeah. And hey, I want to come in here and maybe he saw all this negativity and all the doom and gloom and everything. So I want to be part of fixing this. And I believe in Kyrie and Anthony Davis. And whenever we get them back, maybe he's hopeful in that way.
Maybe. I mean, he did have a comment like a week ago where he was like, this team, after the Lakers game, he was like, paraphrasing here, obviously, but he was pretty much saying,
this is a championship team.
This is a championship team. I've been around championship teams, and this is a championship team. And I believe him when he says that. Like, I think that goes beyond just hyping up your team. And maybe he still sees that. Like, maybe he looks at it and he's like, Kyrie will be back by February, maybe.
Or maybe he's optimistic and says December, January.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like, that's enough to get into the play-in or the playoffs. And
I'm mainly saying I would be a little surprised if he starts the season on the team, because I just think the Mavericks are going to go big fish hunting in the offseason.
Yeah.
And his contract has to be included.
Whether he requests the trade or the Mavericks trade him because they're trying to go get a Kevin Durant, or we already heard that they wanted to get Jimmy Butler too. So
right, yeah, that was an interesting one.
Either of those things, you're like, all right, Klay Thompson's got to be on the way out.
Those reports, there was talks. What does that even mean? I never understand what that means, because it's very possible the Mavs checked in. We're just like, we don't like the price. Like, we don't want to give up this guy or that guy.
Yeah, well, the thing about they asked about, or they were inquired about, or even like in the past where the Lakers are checking in on Luka, you know what I mean? We made fun of those. We made fun of those rumors because it's always, these GMs are always calling each other and always talking about players and what their value is. Because you're trying, as a GM, you have to figure out what the market is for your players first. We can guess what we think the market is for certain players, but a GM has to know if you're going to make some kind of deal like that. And so they're always calling each other to talk about, well, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about this guy? That's why Donnie Nelson was able to do the KP deal as quickly as he did, because he already had talked to the Knicks front office and knew what it would cost. And so when it was available, he's like, all right, well, we've already talked about what we would offer. Boom, done. And it happened. And so, yeah, for the Jimmy Butler thing, it's like maybe they talked about it. Maybe they discussed what other players, and obviously PJ and Gafford were in the talks because they had to be. But yeah, that's interesting. Coming up, let's talk about Naji Marshall. What can he gain the rest of the season? And then let's actually play the game with the two-way guys. What would you do with them? We'll talk about all that and more coming up. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, if you're watching this as some kind of air check, we're in the dark days for the Dallas Mavericks. This is why we look like this. But you're not dark when you play FanDuel. There's all kinds of great things you can get going all the time on FanDuel. Check out and see what is available right now. New customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets. If you're betting on the Mavericks, maybe do the happiness hedge. This is what my friend Sean Woodley of Locked On Raptors says. Bet against your favorite team so that when your favorite team loses, you at least win some money off of it. So maybe you do the happiness hedge, or you can go check out some of the other great stuff as well. You got March Madness coming up too. There's all kinds of great things you can do with that. Again, put down $5. If it's your first $5 and you win, you get $150 in bonus bets. That's great. You can use for anything else. Duke and Auburn plus 340 are the top for the men's basketball championship winner. That's interesting. I didn't know. I felt like Auburn was the favorite there a little while. So check it out. Again, FanDuel.com. See what's available for you. FanDuel.com.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. It's the dark days. The dark days have begun. The darkness, we're living in it.
Get used to it.
Naji Marshall, 32 minutes, 22 points, 11 boards. To me, the most important thing, he hit a couple of threes and hit another long shot too. That's one of the things I think he can take away from this season is, can we get Naji Marshall to get his groove back? Can Stella get her groove back with his long ball? Yeah,
I mean that's true. Like if Naji were to get to mid-30s and threes in the last 20 or so games, that leaves you with some confidence moving forward. But ultimately, though, yeah, I mean, you're going to get a lot of on-ball reps from Naji Marshall. I feel like his usage was through the roof tonight. And,
it's efficient, though.
Yeah, no, he was good. I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way, because he has to be on-ball a bunch. So, yeah, him getting to a spot where his three-point shot just feels better and he's more confident with it moving forward is great.
That's what they need. I mean, because you're looking at, with all these players, you're looking at individual skills and what can they take away and how can they contribute to next year's team whenever whenever they are fully healthy, whenever that does happen, if it does happen for the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, I'm not going to apologize for that anymore, because we're just going to have to. That's what we have to do, because you're always going to talk about this team as a hypothetical until we actually see it, and it may be a year from now, but this is what it is.
I mean, it's Naji's in the same boat Klay is, where it's just like, I'm just looking at the last 19 games. I'm like, who is not going to be on this roster? Like, who are we seeing the last 19 games of as a member of the Mavs? And Naji's on that list for me as a potential possibility. So
I looked at this roster tonight, and my first thought was, you know what? Actually, this is probably a decent opportunity for the Mavs bench to get some run, like, and to really build some chemistry, so that next year when the starting lineup comes back, you know, of Kyrie, Caleb Martin, PJ, AD, and Lively, like, then the bench will have a bunch of chemistry. But then I thought the same thing as you after that. I was like, you know what? Who all is going to be left? Because Dinwiddie's a free agent. I can't imagine he comes back. Maybe he does because he gets a better opportunity. They can pay him more money or whatever. Brandon Williams, Kessler Edwards, they're on two ways. You don't know about them. I think Kessler Edwards may be ineligible for two-way next year. Dwight Powell will remain. He's still on the Mavs from here on out. We talked about Klay, maybe a trade. Naji may have to be in a trade if you need his contract. I think Max Christie should still be on the Mavs because you got to invest in somebody.
Yeah.
And so that's and then Omax, and maybe Omax isn't a deal or not. But man, it's just like, I couldn't even take that away. Where it's like, oh, at least the bench will get chemistry. This may not be the bench next year.
That's what. So if you compare it to like the Grizzlies situation last year, at least for the Grizzlies, it was like Scottie Pippen Jr. That's Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams Jr. These are all guys who will probably play for us in our rotation next year. So give them the most on-ball reps possible, and also young guys that you want to get game experience for and let them develop a little bit. In the Mavs case, it is just like the only guy who fits that building to me realistically is Max Christie, who, you know, hit some threes tonight. I mean, 2 of 9, 5 of 16, kind of in a little bit of an inefficient stretch here. But I like some of his shots. I thought they were good-looking shots. And I guess Omax, which I don't know. I'm not really there with Omax, to be honest with you. I hope for the best, but
yeah, I'm not there with him either. And this version of this team is the worst way to see if Omax is viable either. You want to see him with some playmakers and see him with, you know, a real center defending the paint so that he can really be a good like perimeter defender and like this is just not the context to see a good Omax at his best, but it is going to stretch him, and he is going to play a lot of minutes. Played 24 minutes tonight, so that is going to happen. And yeah, but Max Christie's the only one it seems like that they should invest time in that's going to be here any kind of long term. Even Nico Harrison's long term of 4 years.
I don't know if I've said this on here, but I had an unpopular opinion about that.
Uh-oh.
I think that's pretty much every GM's version of long term.
Oh, I think we blow it out of proportion, but because long-term for the Mavericks with Luka was like 10 years from now when he's like 35, you know, that was our version of long-term, but every GM, they're not thinking longer than 4 years. You just can't say that out loud.
Agreed.
If you're Nico in that moment, in that presser where you're talking about giving up a 25-year-old superstar, like that part was ridiculous. And that's why I keep making fun of the 4-year long-term thing.
So what, okay, just changing the topic here. I don't go on Twitter anywhere near the amount that I used to. It's very infrequently now.
That's good.
When did Exum get hurt?
I don't know. To be perfectly honest, I can't keep track. There was 9 injured players.
He wasn't even on the bench, was he?
No.
So did Exum get hurt in the Kings game too?
Maybe it was a foot contusion for him, right?
Because at least Kai Jones was on the bench. And the other guys who are hurt aren't traveling with the team. Because why would you?
Exum only played 3 minutes in the fourth quarter, so last against the Kings. So maybe.
Well, that was
sometime then. I don't feel bad at all for not knowing when these guys got hurt anymore. There's too many of them.
Is Exum actually hurt? I have no clue. There's just at this point I don't know. 'Cause I would have to assume with the fact that there's 8 guys available that you're playing if you're
if you could, especially since he's going to be a free agent too, so he's not necessarily part of this team next year either.
Yeah, that's true as well. Exum is a free agent, so see how that plays out.
All right, maybe in the future we'll talk about the two-way guys and what kind of maneuvering you would do.
They're just probably going to say, all right, Kessler, you're playing this game. Brandon Williams, you're not. Kai Jones, you're not.
Yeah, but would you run through Brandon Williams 8 more games or 10 more games and then sign somebody else? You know what I mean? Like, would you do that or would you try and stagger them?
I try to stagger them at this point. I mean, at this point, I'm interested to see the next few games because it'll tell us a lot.
This also, though, gives you a chance for your deep scouting department to go through some guys in the league that you're like, all right, well, let's try some two-way guys. We can try guards. We can try wings. We can try everything because we're like a functioning G League team right now. we can try anything we want.
I think the team's gonna. I think by the end of the week we're gonna look at it and be like, oh, they're tanking.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm doing that now.
I know, but I think you could kind of right now you could talk yourself into like we still want AD to come back, but I think it'll be obvious that they're full fledged going for the bottom.
And we may find out tomorrow, or we may find out Thursday if you're listening to this, because we'll hear about that's the great reevaluation day, which has completely different connotation than it did a couple weeks ago when we learned about it.
I'm not feeling the hype for this. I just think what we're going to get is, if they look fine, we'll reevaluate them again.
No, now it's not going to be great. But before it was like, oh, maybe we'll learn that they'll get a couple of them back, and then they'll go on a playoff run. At least but now it's just completely done. So
how many? All right. 19 games left. If they shut everyone down and this is what we got, how many wins are we looking at? I'm thinking maybe 3.
3 is a lot.
Like 3 and 16.
Why do you think we're in the dark right now? This is the start.
Because I mean, it's impossible to imagine where any of the stuff you need to win a game comes from. I am just imagining. I was joking about this earlier. I'm imagining April 3rd. It's just like Spencer Dinwiddie drops 40, the Mavs win a game, and you're just like, what on earth just happened?
Against the Hawks, and you're like, wait, what?
It's like, why did they just win that game? Do you remember the year that we were taking a couple years ago?
Yes.
JaVale McGee decided at the end of the season, he's like, all right, guys.
Wasn't the JaVale McGee, Christian Wood they dominated the Hawks? It was the Hawks.
It was the Hawks. We're like, what are they doing?
We were so mad at them.
Tanking is hilarious, honestly.
It is counterproductive of everything. Yeah. No, that game they did lose.
Yeah, they lost. They lost that in overtime, didn't they?
Yeah.
In overtime. But JaVale McGee and Christian Wood were going crazy, and everyone was like, what is happening?
They beat Sacramento right after that. Was that the one?
Tanking is so funny. No, it was the Hawks game. It was the Hawks game.
Absolutely insane. Well, hey, we're here for you in the dark days. We're in the dark with you. So stick with us on Locked On Mavs. We'll be here for every post game. We'll keep doing shows every day. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. Go check out Slightly Biased, great YouTube channel. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.
See you guys at the lottery.
Beast Report, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time tomorrow.